everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar as we host Bollinger Motors. For those of you just coming on, we are going to take audience questions, so please be sure to utilize the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, or you can use the chat function, whichever you're most comfortable with. So we're going to begin, and with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Robert Bollinger, founder and CEO of Bollinger Motors. Take it away, Robert.
Thanks so much. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Robert Bollinger, founder and CEO of Bollinger Motors. Along the call with us today is Siva Kumar, our CFO. He'll be jumping in a little bit later in the presentation. All right. So here at Bollinger Motors, we are engineering a complete commercial solution. What does that mean? So basically in our past 7 years of experience, we've been working with suppliers, upfitters, manufacturers, and such. And what we've created is a complete solution to the commercial environment. So that includes manufacturing, upfitting, selling, servicing, full complete partnerships on every step of the vehicle life cycle. And basically that's a big key differentiator for Bollinger Motors, in that not only are we building vehicles, but we have the entire infrastructure leading up to the build, the actual build, the distribution, the sales, the service, the infrastructure charging, everything that fleets need in order to make this successful. On the next slide, you'll see that what we'll be talking about today is our platforms and our chassis cabs, and how creating both of those vehicles in classes 3 through 6 also differentiates us from the competition and really gives us an opportunity to provide basically any vehicle that fleets need in class 3 through 6. We're poised to become the leader in commercial electric vehicles. We have a differentiated product. This is what we'll be going over in today's presentation. Attractive market growth, low risk, asset light approach, speed to market, that's what we're all about. Strong tier 1 support, decades of commercial experience with our team, and again, with a proven manufacturing partner, strong customer list that we've started. We really think that we are going to be the perfect company to fulfill class 3 through 6 vehicles going forward. Here, let's talk about our product first. Like I said earlier, we are making both platforms for upfits, for walk-in vans and the like, and also chassis cabs for upfits. So we are the only company doing both of these vehicles across class 3 through 6, offering a variety of battery pack sizes, multiple wheelbases. And so between these two vehicles and all the upfitters and all the support we have outside after the build, we think we will be able to provide fleets with every vehicle they need in class 3 through 6. So this is really a big differentiator for us against a lot of our competition, which we'll get into later, which might be building one sliver of this market and might be taking on all the risk themselves. So we are very concerned about having the whole ecosystem to make us successful, and that's what we're going to go into here later in the presentation. So a little bit of a deep dive into our product, the platform first. Basically what we've done here is talk to our fleet customers and design a platform that they want. They want flat, straight rails. They want to be able to build on top of it like they've been building on top of their vehicles for years. We've been talking to the upfitters that we're going to be working with, and basically design a vehicle that takes all of the current great attributes of commercial vehicles, leaves them alone, but then electrifies it in a very simplified, straightforward way. So here we have that flat, if you can stay back there, so flat, straight rails, right? And then we've widened those a little bit to incorporate battery packs, so they're nice and safe on the inside of these steel flat rails. We have a solid rear axle, e-axle, and that's important to have that across all of our platforms as well, because that is what will carry the weight. So you definitely need a solid rear e-axle. That's a little bit different than some of our competition. The dual wheels, of course, you need for the higher weight ratings. And then we have all of our HP component stuff all efficiently put up in the front, and that all of those components basically stay the same for classes 3 through 6. So we have a great economy of scale and a great way that we can handle all 3 or all 4 of these classes with 90% of the same components. Getting deeper into our battery pack systems, we will be working with a tier 1 provider for battery packs. That's someone that's close to us here in Michigan. We will be offering 1 to 4 battery packs. Our smaller class 3 vehicles might be able to get away with, if you will, 1 battery pack that might get them over a 100-mile range. But we can also double stack those in that smaller class 3. And then as we go up in higher class ranges, we can add or double those battery packs. That starts to get a little costly, a little heavy, but if a vehicle really needs to have that extra range, we're going to be offering that ability to our customers. Our battery packs are also going to be LFP chemistry, which is lithium iron phosphate. That's where the industry is headed towards. It's a much more stable chemistry. It avoids a lot of those rare metals. And also we're going to be a 700 volt system. So some of our competition is doing a 350 volt system, maybe because they're down in the class 2, 2B area. But for the more powerful needs of commercial trucks as you go up into class 6, you definitely need to be in the 700 volt system. So with these options of being able to get different numbers of battery packs, this is a big plus for us. Again, being able to use the same battery pack, but carry that across 4 different classes of trucks. As on top of that same exact platform that we'll be offering as a platform to upfitters for walk-in vans and the like, through all those classes, we're also going to be offering it with a chassis cab, right? And we are going with the cab forward chassis cab, as illustrated here. One of the biggest reasons is compared against traditional cabs, is it gives you that extra 2 feet of volume. And a lot of times now, especially with last mile delivery, is these vehicles are cubing out before they weigh out. So that extra space is needed, even if they don't, fully hit the weight limit of their truck. A lot of fleets are downsizing. They're going from 5 to 4 or 4 to 3 in their class size because it's really about volume and not so much about weight. So this cab forward is really going to give us a lot more volume over the traditional Ford, GM, Ram kind of future vehicles. It also improves safety immensely with the down vision and really the vision all the way around, turning circles, all of that. So with that extra 2 feet of storage, we can keep our wheelbases as short as possible for the volume needed by our customer, and that'll give us better turning circles than Isuzu and others. And so we'll have best-in-class turning circle, and those kind of things really add up for that day-to-day delivery space. Again, back to that ecosystem that I mentioned earlier, we'll jump into that a little bit more. A huge benefit to this ecosystem, of course, is our viability and our ability to successfully build vehicles, deliver them, sell them, service them, help them charge, and make our customers happy where they keep coming back for more, right? So that's what our entire plan here is, to be part of that ecosystem and really work heavily with those partners. So I can say, it's to de-risk it and lower our capital needs. And that's great. Those are great words to use. Those are true. But it's really about the partnerships. It's really about working with people who want to work with us and who we will be making a lot of announcements with over the next few months. So a lot of these we can share with you under NDA over the next few slides, but we'll just dive a little bit more into the ecosystem that we've created around us. So here, first of all, is obviously building the vehicle. So we are working with a battery pack provider who is world-class, doing a lot of great technological advances on battery packs. They will be building the 700-volt LFP battery pack for us. We have a frame builder who has signed on with us, who is a very, very well-known name, has made millions of vehicles, if you will, provided frames for just hundreds of thousands of vehicles. So they will be our frame builder. We have 2 different tier 1 electric e-axle providers. One will be for the class 3-4, the other one will be for 5-6. So we have those prototypes in-house now that we're working with. And then also to cut down costs and risk is what we'll be buying the full cab forward as a unit. So this allows us to buy the major components, let them have their expertise, let them carry that risk and that cost. And really it's all about us integrating all these units into a vehicle. And the secret sauce, if you will, is the controls, the software, the driving capabilities, all those kind of things. And that takes a lot of work. That's a huge amount of work just to make a driving vehicle. And so again, we've spread the risk and involved them as a supplier and hopefully investors in the future as well. And so that is about leveraging those partnerships to make a really world-class vehicle. Manufacturing, we're about to announce our manufacturer. This is a well-known name, well-known assembler. And that's really in order to really make world-class vehicles day one. So we definitely do not want to have that learning curve and the first few vehicles out the door are not acceptable, right? So this is a great announcement. Again, we can tell you under NDA. And they are also a great engineering house. So they will be helping us with prototype builds, DV builds. Those are design verification builds next year. A lot of our road testing and fulfilling of our homologation. So this is a really great name to bring on board. And this layout will basically cover 10,000 vehicles a year up to, and Civil will go over the numbers later of our ramp up. But we already had the factory floor designed. It's a micro factory, if you will. This manufacturer has already offered us much more space than this, but we'll start with this amount of space and we can build up to 10,000 units there. We can build another one in a different part of the country and maybe make micro factories around the country and around the globe. Our vehicles will be homologated eventually for export. And so this is a great addition to our team as this manufacturer. Upfitting, we're working with upfitters, right? We are not taking that on ourselves. Some of our competition is deciding to build the electric platform and the walk-in van and manufacture it themselves and try to sell it themselves. Again, we're not doing any of that above. We are making the platform, keeping our concentration on what we do best, is delivering a very efficient electric platform, very efficient electric chassis cab. And we'll be working with upfitters around the country. We have one that was already public, EAVX, which is part of the JB Poindexter group. So we will be working with them on, working through EAVX for one of their other companies to build a walk-in van for us on top of one of our platforms for one of our clients this fall. So that's already started. So we can provide that platform to basically any upfitter. It will be a non-exclusive agreement. And then also the chassis cab will be the same thing, where we have a number of upfitters ready to sign up with us. And of course, you can put anything on the back of that truck. So between all of these, this is where we say we can offer any fleet, looking at the 3 through 6 area, any truck that they need. Just another announcement that we hope to do later this month. This is a nationwide network company that does vehicle distribution, online ordering, vehicle, the whole vehicle ordering, sales in each state, vehicle maintenance. They have a huge vehicle fleet management system already. They help with charging infrastructure, even vehicle disposal. So they have quite, tens of thousands of locations, but they also work with well-known other names as partners for their locations as well. So this is for them to be taking care of their own fleet management. And so we'll slide into that, if you will, and take advantage of all that. So we hope to announce that as well. So that is the biggest thing, right? When we talk to fleets, this is the slide that they get all excited about because it's complete coverage of nationwide and Canada. They put Canada on here, you just see the US, but it's complete coverage for all fleets on everything they need, including part ordering and delivery and warranty issues. So all of it will be covered through this major partner. Next, we're also talking to infrastructure companies and charging companies. I'm sure all EV companies are as well, but just to make sure you know that we are as well. So this will also be probably a non-exclusive situation with a number of them. We're talking to a number of the larger utilities, if you will, some of the companies that will focus mostly on providing electricity at good rates, and that will help fleets with when they should be charging and all that software, all that design, how to get the most out of your, your infrastructure that you change your building, that you put a lot of money into. We're also talking to the hardware providers for level 1, level 2, level 3. When we talk to a lot of our fleets, most of them that we're talking to will have their vehicles available for 8 to 10 hours a day, sitting still, right? Either being filled at night for delivery or whatever. So that's great because it means most of them can charge on a level 2 level, which is best for batteries, of course, and it's best for rates and it's best for everything. So that's where most of what we'll probably be working with fleets on. But that whole expertise on infrastructure and coming into a building that has 100 diesel trucks right now and it has to be completely upfitted to electric, that's a huge undertaking, right? You got to work with your local electric provider, all of the construction, all that kind of stuff, and we have providers that can just take that over and work with us with the fleet. So a lot of fleets, even really large ones that you've heard of, or like, how do we do infrastructure? And we're like, well, let's get you in touch with A, B, and C that we're talking to. So we have this covered as well. A lot of those companies also are offering capital to do so as well. So even if fleets don't want to spend all the money, there'll be capital available there. Also, we're talking to a lot of companies that will take on the entire cost. Well, they'll buy the truck, they'll do the whole infrastructure, and they'll just have a monthly lease cost back to the fleet. So we have tons of options for how to get our trucks in the correct buildings and ready to go. Customers, I would love to say, have this page be with all of the logos on it of the people we're talking to. So next step, right, when you sign up for that next level. But anyway, so we're talking to a lot of utilities, we're talking to delivery companies, fleet management companies, universities, and also the upfitters. So we have the upfitters. What's great about working directly with all the upfitters is that they already have customers, right? And they need electric chassis, so they will be introducing customers to us as well. So that ecosystem is really, I can't stress it enough, I'll say it a million times during this call, but that ecosystem is crucial to our survival and our success, and we've established it. We just want to make all these announcements over the next few months. Also just to cover really quickly what is class 3 through 6. It is, everything above passenger vehicles, right? Passenger vehicles are class 1 and 2. Your larger pickup trucks would be class 2. And of course, 7 and 8 is 18-wheelers on the road. Class 7 is a little bit smaller than that. Class 1 and 2 is hugely, has a ton of competition in there. There's tons of vehicles already on the road from Ram and Ford that are electrified, Ford Transits, right? So that's very, a lot of competition there. We're outside of that. We're larger than that. We're the next step up in vehicles for that. Class 8 is going to have a lot of difficulties electrifying. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Tesla and Nikola have been on it for a while, so that's a whole other animal, not touching that. So we really think that class 3 through 6 is really what is primed to go electric first. That's where there are just tons of vehicles. They can be made into electric. There are a few players who are competing against us, and even if they are in the field with us, again, they are probably doing one sliver of something that we're doing the full breadth of, which I think it might be on the next slide showing that. Yeah, so right here, we took what is often the names of competitors that are said back to us when we're giving these presentations, and we just went in and looked at it. So obviously I wrote this list on the side, but if you look at it, class 3 through 6 options, the full options, some are doing that. Who has a lot of experience? Some of us do. Platform, offering both platforms and chassis cabs, only a couple of us, right? The 700 volt system, that safer LFP battery chemistry, offering many battery pack options. A lot of people keep this kind of information to themselves, so there might be someone else out there that we didn't find that information, but as far as we know, we're the only ones doing that right now. De-risking the manufacturing, all that kind of stuff. So this just shows how we've prepared a lot, we've created that ecosystem very well, and really what we've incorporated in our truck really came from a lot of direct conversation with fleets. So this is very voice of customer as to what's in our vehicle. I'll start this and then I'll hand it over to you, Seva, but basically just want to show how, you're like, how can you do all this stuff, all these different classes? Really what we're concentrating on is 2 platforms. Right now we're concentrating on the B3 class 3 platform. All 7 years that we've been in existence, we have been all electric in class 3. So class 3 and electric it's ours. We own that. We own that segment. So we've been in that segment for a long time. So we are developing that platform first. It's the largest of the whole, than the other classes combined. So it's a great place to start. And also, that's the one that we're going to be showing to very specific customers with very specific upfits this fall. And then we can upgrade that to cover the B4 class 4 segment. The B5, that'll be a stronger frame, a larger E-axle. So that'll be a slightly different animal, but then that can be upgraded to B6. So we're really making 2 platforms and then 2 cousins thereof, and then we staggered it out accordingly. So we'll have running prototypes this fall, and then into SOP late next year. So I'm going to hand over to Seva, who can talk to you about the revenue and the like.
Thanks, Robert. As Robert just indicated, our B3 prototypes are going to be up and running later this year and undergoing a fleet of testing for batteries and vehicle handling and performance. We're hoping to get them into customer hands early next year, and they will be going through validation in customer hands, and our manufacturing partner will be getting ready for production starting early next year through the end of next year. So we're looking to go live late next year with a small pilot volume in Q4 of next year. And that's the 18 million that you see at the top of the page. It's really from that small pilot volume in Q4 of 23. We should be in full production through 2024 and ramping up. And we should hit the full capacity of our first phase in our assembly line by the end of 24. And then we'll double our capacity there, go to a 2-shift operation, and we'll get to about 10,000 units by end of 2025. And oh, by the way, we will be cash flow positive by 2025. Just a little look at the business case. We believe fleets will find the business case is very compelling for electric vehicles, particularly because these vehicles spend 8 to 10 hours on the road every day. They come back at night. They have adequate time for charging. But during the time they're on the road, they're in start-stop city cycles or semi-urban cycles, and a lot of time spent idling where they're not guzzling gas. So if you look at the map that I've laid out in the 2 columns for electric vehicles versus diesel, you'll see that while an electric vehicle costs a little more upfront for a given, let's say, 120 mile per day route, the cost of electricity per mile is typically less than the cost of diesel per mile. And so they end up saving about half their bill in fuel costs. They also end up saving about half in maintenance because there are a lot fewer moving parts. And so if you think of their cost of ownership over 10 years, they're significantly lower. And if you do a payback calculation with no incentives, it's about 4 years. And all of this, by the way, was analyzed with diesel at $3.75 per gallon, which was the national average diesel price back in January before the Ukraine situation got out of control. So diesel prices are much higher right now, and if anything, the business case for electrification has improved since. So with a standard $7,500 incentive, which is available today to any OEM for a class 1 to 3 vehicle, we see payback improving about 3 years, and most states have significant additional incentives. And with those regional incentives, I picked the average of 24,000 here, but they go much higher in states like California. We see the payback dropping to as low as 1 year. So given that fleets track their dollars and cents very closely and monitor their vehicle costs, we think they will adapt electrification very rapidly because the business case really exists relative to, let's say, personal use vehicles where people are driving 2 or 3 hours a day at the most. So this is a typical example. We've worked with a variety of fleets on their business cases, and we continue to see a similar trend for almost all fleets that we talk to. A little bit about the size of the market. This class 3 through 6 space is about 500,000 vehicles a year, and that you'll see on the left of the page. So about 2/3 of that is in the class 3 space, which is where we're getting started. These 500,000 odd vehicles, by the way, are 2019 volumes, and volumes have been growing every year in the last decade, and will continue to grow because of growth in e-commerce. And then you throw in the electrification that you see in the middle of the page, which is pretty agreed upon in industry that at least half of the commercial vehicles are going to go electric by 2035. Then you see the volumes for electrification in these classes on the right of the page. So it will reach 250,000 by, let's say, the middle of the next decade. So what does that translate into from a dollars and cents perspective? We see the market growing about 20% a year growing from about $3 billion next year to close to $20 billion by 2032. And if you consider that these vehicles are relatively lightly regulated globally versus the class 1 and 2, which is personal use vehicles, or the class 7 and 8, which are the heavy duty vehicles, we see a lot of opportunity to export this model outside of North America with very minimal modifications. So we see about a 3.5x opportunity outside of the US. So that 20 billion really is a 70 billion opportunity if you can expand your footprint globally, which we plan to do after we stabilize in North America. So in terms of our revenue perspective, as I mentioned in an earlier slide, we've got about 260 million between 23 and 24. A very little of that in 23, and most of that in 2024. And we see that ramping up steadily afterward. About 65% of that is through letters of intent from customers. Now, granted, those letters of intent are for small pilot volumes to evaluate these vehicles, but these are the volumes that these customers are projecting, and they've been happy to sign an LOI with us and are anxious to get our vehicles for test. We're also working with other fleets, and that's the second half of the pie chart on the left, which is the advanced pipeline, so that's about a third, and we are close to getting an LOI with those customers as well. So you see there's about a 2/3, 1/3 split between customers with an LOI and customers that we're close to signing an LOI on. In terms of the product split, the flat chassis platform is about 20% of our volume, and the chassis cab is about 80% of our volume. So most of the volume is going to be the chassis cab variant. So here are the volumes and the revenues that we projected. So you can see to the left of the page, we've got a pilot production number of 240 vehicles in 2023, ramping up to about 3,000 vehicles in 24. And that's actually a gradually increasing ramp up through the course of the year. So it's close to a 5,000 unit run rate by the end of the year. And that's when we'll go to double our capacity and go to the next increment. We'll add additional 5,000 capacity through 2025, and then we'll add incremental capacity in 26 and 27. So we plan to have our facilities in units of 10,000, a micro factory, if you will, and then we'll clone that model. We're close to customers, whether it be in the East or West Coast or overseas. And so you can see the revenues that we're projecting on the right of the page. So the revenue is going from 18 to 262 million, and then on to 1.8 billion by 2027. So as far as margins go, we're very confident we can reach 15% EBITDA margin by 2027, and we're targeting to reach over 20% EBITDA by 2032. So in terms of our funding requirements, we're relatively light compared to our competition who have raised money in public markets recently, most of whom have raised about a couple of $100 million. So we see our needs are closer to 150 million, of which 50 million is for working capital. We can handle that separately with an asset-backed lending facility. And really, we're looking to fund about 100 million, about 2/3 of that for product development, and about 1/3 of that for production, tooling, and equipment. And our SG&A is really a very small piece of that. So really, we're talking to investors to look at a variety of options. We're flexible. We're looking to do an immediate bridge round, which gets us through either late this year or early Q1 of next year. And then we'll do a larger raise at that point for the bulk of our manufacturing spend. So that's really a little bit about our capital focus and usage. We're focused on launching the class 3 and 4 platforms, and the 4 is really a variant of the 3. And then we'll use the proceeds, not the proceeds, are the fact that we're going to be cash positive by 2025 to fund additional investment for additional capacity.
And Siva, just to jump in real fast, a lot of investors ask us, so I just thought we'd cover it. I am the largest investor in the company, so I have a big stake in the company. So I had put my money into this. I funded the company for the first number of years. We do have other investors that have come on in the past couple of years, but obviously moving into production, a bigger number, looking to expand it out to more investors. But I am the largest investor, and people like to hear that sometimes. So I am very, very deeply involved in the company on many levels.
So so Robert, we've spent close to 50 plus million, 53, I think, at the last count, in the company, and you own the majority of that equity. A little bit about our team: solid experience across all aspects of electric and commercial vehicles. I'll talk a little bit about myself and hand it back to Robert. So I started out, so I've got 32 plus years in the industry, spent about 10 years in engineering, 22 years in finance and in P&L roles globally, both here, China and India and Japan. Spent 3 years as the director of product strategy for a large tier one named Meritor, which was recently acquired by Cummins. And I put together their electrification strategy, which was instrumental in getting them acquired by Cummins a couple of months ago. So very familiar with the medium duty space and very familiar with electrification, been working on it since 2015. So Robert, back to you.
Great. Thanks, Siva. So some other important, some of the people on this page anyway. Kent Harrison is our Chief Product Officer. Spent his entire career at Ford. His last 15 years, I think, was in the commercial space, getting vehicles to production, into production on time. So that's huge. So he's been a really great addition to the team. Brian Chambers has tons of low volume manufacturing experience, has been with us since he's been employee number 4, I believe. Frank ran a ton of fleet management at GM. He was a director at Denso for heavy duty division. So he is reaching out to fleets. He has great fleet connection and has really been instrumental in that huge, those numbers that Siva talked to you about. My background is marketing, advertising, but my biggest, where I got the money from was I was partners in John Masters Organics, where we grew that and sold that company twice, the last time for 9 figures. So that's gave me the funding to go back to my childhood dream and get into automotive. So the broader team that you don't see here, just the tier ones, the OEMs and engineering houses, all that experience is here in-house now. This is a quick shot of our facility here. We're on 11 Mile, just outside Detroit. So we have the most experience, again, day one, when we started the company in 2015. We were all electric and class 3 trucks from day one. So we have really the most experience in that specific field. And like I said earlier, that 3 goes up to 4, and then we use that knowledge for 5 and 6. So we are poised to be really the perfect company to enter this segment and be a leader in this segment, right? So again, these are the lists of what we said earlier, telling what we'd be talking about. So hopefully you see that we have differentiated product, that low risk asset light approach, all the experience and all the that ecosystem really supporting us is really what's going to make us successful. And again, back to that ecosystem, getting ahead of myself. So again, a lot of announcements coming up soon. Hopefully under NDA, we can share more information with you on our suppliers, our outfitters, that nationwide fleet management company, which is really, really huge. So thank you very much. I guess we're ready for some questions.
Okay, well, we've had quite a few come in, so I'm going to ask you to stop sharing your screen and we will get right into the Q&A. So since fleet customers of this class of vehicles are so concentrated, will Bollinger Motors be managing its own sales force in-house? Will you also have inline sales?
Right. So with that partner that we will announce soon, they have an entire software system for ordering and maintenance. So we'll be part of their system, but we will have an internal sales force as well that we continually grow. So it'll be a hybrid. So again, like with our manufacturers or with our suppliers, we'll have our in-house person in charge of that, but also working very closely with our partners.
Great.
If I could add to that, Kelly. So we will have our team in-house will be focused on large national accounts, and the fleet management partner who we're partnering with will be able to steer us to the smaller sized accounts. So we'll have and there's going to be a mix in the middle where there's some overlap, but we'll be working with them closely and coordinating our activities between both teams.
Great, thank you. You seem to be outsourcing everything, which is good in terms of scalability, but now you have margin stacking. So how will you be competitive versus others that are more vertically integrated?
Do you want?
Sure. So we're actually pretty competitive in terms of our pricing and our relative to others in the market, and we're confident of our volume and margin projections. We think with scale, which comes with working with these national fleets, we'll be able to get discounts in future years, which we'll be able to pass on to customers and improve our margins as well. But right now we're showing we'll be able to get to those margins that I indicated earlier, and we'll continue to improve those over time with volume.
And we have quite a bit of leeway. We have cushion in the plan that covers any incidentals, but also really our quick to market is really key right now, right? Because we have to get the trucks out there. We have to get these customers, big names that are talking to us right now. We have to get vehicles in hand. So it's definitely worth to get, to do the plan we're doing and work heavily with all of these suppliers who, again, they know their segment much better than if we try to create a motor or if we try to create our own battery packs. We have worked on our own battery packs. We know battery packs intimately in and out. We've created 3 rounds for ourselves, but going to LFP and going to 700 volt, we found a perfect partner for that. So it's really a matter of, do we engineer in-house and never get there, or do we work with these companies and get there and lead in the segment? That's our goal.
Great. Many EV companies are positioning themselves as tech companies that capture data from their users. Is that part of your strategy?
We'll definitely have to capture data to know, how our trucks are operating, right? So we'll have to know, have feedback on batteries, onboard chargers, when are they charging? So that'll help us make better vehicles for sure. With our service provider, we have a full fleet management software that will be part of it. So they'll be able to, we'll want them to have that access as well, right? So they can see, and then our infrastructure partners will also help and look at that software. How can we best drive the vehicles to get the most range out of it? And if you start half an hour later, the traffic patterns would allow, this much more range. So that kind of thing. So we're going to get that kind of detailed with all of our partners. So we will be capturing that data to learn, make the trucks better, help our customers have a better experience.
Once you get your platform going, do you plan on going back to consumer trucks?
Like that one behind me? Yeah, so those are my babies. That's my childhood dream right there. And those are on postponed, let's say. So really the idea was, I would love to go back to them. We have the 4th generation of a prototype down in the shop, and I'm going to make it my personal driving vehicle for now. So those will always be in my heart. And the idea is, after we've established ourselves, is to look into that. So it's another business plan.
Thank you. And trying to better understand your model, is your truck more expensive up front, but cheaper over the life of the truck if you include the maintenance costs?
Absolutely, yes.
And that's true for all EVs when you compare them against diesel. So that TCO slide that Siva went through is true for all EVs. But the point is, like, where can you get your first price point coming in at? So with quotes that we have from our suppliers and a lot of work put in the deck, we believe we can come in at a decent price for that first vehicle. And fleets are all about payback time. So when that bottom part of that chart, when you see that it gets paid back in as little as maybe 1.3 years, you should tell them that, depending on what state they're in, depending on what kind of incentives. But that's why class 3 through 6 is so great for electrification, because it's going to be the one that's told to fleets by states, you can't buy diesel anymore. And that's going to be the first segment that it's told to. So class 3 through 6 will go electric first. And so that's a big part. They'll have to give incentives to make that happen, and then their payback is 1.3 years, and then we're all on board, right?
So while there's a clear business case for all electric vehicles in this space, we're able to differentiate ourselves based on our cab design that Robert talked about, the cab forward, which allows maximum space in the back of the vehicle. It's safer for drivers, and our path to market through this fleet management company with 80,000 touch points for sales and service across the country. That's what's going to differentiate us versus other players in EV.
Thank you. The product roadmap shows your class 3 running prototype complete by Q4 of 22. How confident are you in this timeline given any supply chain issues?
Well, we have an e-axle already in house. We know the timing from our battery provider. We're pretty confident. We're confident we're going to hit those dates. So those first vehicles are, for test tracks. They're obviously not to the level of going out in the street yet. So to be clear, so that's test track. That's customers coming along. That's us being in the vehicle with them. It's very controlled, very safe. That's what the first vehicles have to be. So to be safe, the DVs, which will be in the Q1 of next year, those are the design validation verification vehicles, and so those are the ones that would be the final components, and those are the ones that we can take out on the streets with manufacturers' plates, let our fleets drive those and stuff like that. So it's a big difference, but it's a good question. But we definitely will be having operational vehicles this fall.
Great. Can you talk about your gross margins and what you're forecasting, and which in each class of the vehicles?
Without getting into too much detail, we're forecasting gross margins north of 20% when we get into stable production, and those continue to improve with time as our volumes improve, which translates into an EBITDA of about 15% or so, which also continues to improve with time.
I don't think, and the question was if per class, but I think it's going to be more about timing, right? 3 comes out first, then 4, then 5, then 6. So it's going to be more about the time that they come out, right?
And we're targeting to be somewhat similar in margin across classes, but again, it's going to be dependent upon where we are relative to the competition. The point to remember is there's opportunity for multiple players in this segment. Ford and GM are really late to the party. They've talked about not even entering this till 2030 and beyond. So there's going to be us, there's potentially others, and we see, frankly, room for all of us. And our volume projections are based on a conservative 20% market share. And we think industry volumes will be higher because we haven't taken into account any industry volume growth from e-commerce. So we believe we're conservative. We believe we have a lot of reserves for warranty and cost overruns. So we're comfortable with our projection.
So it's really time to market, the breadth and depth of what we can offer. Plus, we will be differentiated from the Ford and GMs of the future, which will definitely use their traditional cab. So it'll just be a different, you might want to buy that vehicle when it goes electric. That's fine, but we'll be a different animal. So we're purposely trying to, offer what fleets want, from listening to them right now. So.
Okay, great. So what is your exit strategy? Do you plan on selling to one of the big 3 or take the Tesla route?
My focus is on the next vehicles that need to be made and, getting all these announcements out, getting this fundraise through with Siva. So, I don't know. I think it'd be great to continue making vehicles, keep growing and be our own company. is how I see it. So I just see moving in that direction. But I'm really focused on the next 2 years. It's really crucial.
Thank you. Can you talk about crash testing? Has it been crash tested by NHTSA?
So we've been doing simulated crash testing, and as we get into each of the classes, each one will have to be simulated. A big issue with electric trucks is the weight of the battery, right? And that plays a big part in everything. So that's a huge thing. So our frame provider and our battery supplier and us will be in a three-way engineering of making sure that's all held right. Because also you want your truck to twist and have the room to do that. So you don't want the battery packs to be structural. You want them to float, but then be held extremely well, right? So there's all these different challenges to it. So we're going through all that CAE work right now. We are doing simulated crash testing now. And I believe for these categories, physical crash testing is not required. But right now, at this point in our stage, we are doing all the simulated crash testing right now.
Great. Will you provide chassis through the CAHVIP incentive program, or will you leave that to your upfitters to manage?
We're still working through that.
Okay.
We're gonna definitely apply for the HVIP incentives through that program, but we'll work through our providers, our upfitters as well.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And can you tell us about your patent portfolio regarding your expandable platform?
So we have a number of patents that came from our earlier work. A lot of it is about vehicle controls and systems and software and that kind of stuff. So all that translates over into our vehicle. I think the expandable, it's I don't know if that would be a design patent versus a utility patent, but we do have a patent pending actually for modular battery pack system and how we would do that. And so that's a pending patent. So we do have some patents that go on the commercial vehicles, but our strategy is not dependent on us doing something massively crazy different and having to, secure that patent or defend that patent. It's really about giving the customers exactly what they want and getting it to market. So it's more about voice of customer and working with their clients rather than, a number of them have said, don't make it crazy, don't make it fancy, don't do anything you don't need to do. We want the straight rails, make it electric. I want to put my box on it and go. So it's really more about practicality than owning a certain section of the truck.
Okay, and can you talk about the battery cost, lithium ion versus lithium iron phosphate now and in the future of 2024?
Sure. So do you want to take that one or?
Sure. So clearly LFP or lithium iron is cheaper than lithium ion. And as Robert indicated, it's a lot safer and with almost zero possibility of a thermal event. Tesla's already gone to that on a couple of their models, and we're definitely moving that way. And we think the industry will move there. Our costs per pack are in line with what commercial vehicle packs are at, which are actually much higher than packs coming out of an LG or an SK for a Ford or a GM or a Daimler. Those packs are in much higher volumes, and the cost per kilowatt hour is much lower. We're fully aware of that, and we continue to monitor it. But the reality is commercial vehicle packs are a different animal, and they cost more because the volumes are much lower.
Yeah, and also, sorry. Also, LFP is definitely sizably less expensive than NCM and then NMC and other chemistries, but they are less energy dense, and so your battery packs have to be a little bit bigger, or you just have less in your battery pack, right? But that's also what makes it perfect for these trucks, because you have that room. If you try to put LFP into, passenger vehicles, it's being done. But you put it in passenger vehicles, and everybody wants a 400-mile range, even though they don't need it ever, or rarely need it. That's a difficult thing to get LFP into personal vehicles, but it will happen. So, but it's perfect for this, again, for these classes to go LFP now. So, and it brings down the cost of the total overall vehicle. a lot of our fleets as well, too, a lot of them only need 70-mile range. So that can be done with one battery pack on our end. A lot of them only need 110, so it's, Mike started getting up into the 2-pack under bad conditions or under full payload. So we can cover an awful lot of trucks with just 1 or 2 battery packs. And at LFP, each of those packs is relatively inexpensive compared to the other chemistry.
Okay, great.
So we benchmark our battery prices against from multiple providers, so we know we're in line. Our battery providers are in line with industry projections.
And we almost do it daily because those numbers are changing due to worldwide conditions.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for joining. For anyone out there that has additional questions, wants additional dialogue with the company and dive in deeper, everyone out there has my email address. Happy to make the connection. They in turn will have all of your information as well, and we'll be reaching out. So I want to thank everyone for joining. And Robert, I want to turn it back over to you for any final words before we say goodbye.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot. I appreciate the time. We got a ton of momentum going on here. Again, a ton of announcements that come out, all these great partners that come on board, a great team. Excited to move forward and get into riding in these trucks this fall. So hopefully come on board and help us get there.
Okay, thanks everyone, and have a great day.